Hello, welcome to the Practical Skills for Politics class. This is going to be a slightly different class this week. Obviously, it's online because the last 2 weeks of university teaching have gone online. But in essence, all this week was going to be about was to let you know during the Practical Skills class, the last hour of our usual 4-hour session, exactly what you're going to be doing next year in semester January 2021. So you'll be aware that the university semesterized system, meaning that you study 3 modules in semester 1, which you've just done from September to December. You study 3 different modules after January. So by this point, you'll have completed what are the smaller assessments in Introduction to IR. So you had individual presentations, and in Britain from the Boer to Brexit, where you had the group presentation. But you still have a number of outstanding assessments, even though we're now talking about what's coming next year. You still have a few outstanding assessments in semester 1, which are obviously the Introduction to Politics essay, which hopefully is being uploaded by the 14th of December, because this class technically takes place on the 15th. You have the critical review in Britain from the Boer Brexit due on the 11th of January, and you have the exam within the international relations class, which takes place, we think, but please do check this. There's a site on your Blackboard called SSSHL Students Board. That is where the official student timetable for exams is posted. However, the information that I have, but please note this could change, is that it is likely to be held on the 13th of January to the 15th of January. So what happens is you already have the questions. You already know the questions, so you should start working it now. But on the 13th of January at 9 o'clock, what's called the 48-hour window opens. So you can only upload your exam between 9 a.m. on the 13th of January and 9 a.m. on the 15th of January. If it is submitted after 9 a.m. on the 15th of January, it will score 40 points maximum, because it will be assessed as a late submission. You cannot submit it before 9 a.m. on the 13th of January, because the link should not go live until that point. As I have said, please note this date could change, but this is the latest information that I have at the time that I'm recording this video. So what you'll notice there is that 2 of your assessments in semester 1 are due next year. So technically speaking, semester 2 does not start until, I think it's the 25th of January. So it doesn't start until a couple of weeks into term, because there's a week 13 and a week 14 of university semesters, and they are used for assessments generally. So we try and split these up in essence so that you have things across different dates, etc. So there's one thing during December, January, but you don't have any classes in week 13 or 14. So your next classes will take place when semester 2 starts, after the conclusion of the final week of term, which finishes on the 18th of December 2020. So what will you be doing next year when the clock turns to January and turns to mid-January? So I think these classes will begin about the week commencing the 25th or thereabouts. There's a module on political ideologies, one on Europe, War, Revolution and Union, which runs in a very similar way to the Britain from the Boer or Brexit module you've just had, and an American module from Watergate to Trump, which is very modern American politics. So these modules, just a bit of an intro before I go into a bit more depth about what each is about. Politics, political ideologies is a politics-only module. Only you people will be in the room for this. Europe, however, is a shared module with history. It means all history students take the Europe module, and all politics students take the European module. So it would be very similar to the Britain from the Boer or Brexit, both in terms of kind of content we'll be looking at, but on a European dimension, not a British one, but also in terms of the fact that you'll have similar people in the room, etc. America is a core module for politics students, meaning you have to take it, but it's an option module for history because there's a slightly larger history cohort. They have an option. They only have one option in first year between America or there's another module that's running back. They have a choice between. It's something on Ireland, I think. But in essence, it's not as political as our American module for politics students, just the American politics module. But the class won't be as large, so there won't be the 36 people we've been used to seeing in the Britain class, because the options are usually capped, so the class size will be about 20. So semester 2, as I've said, runs from the 25th of January to the 21st of May. So between the 18th of December and the 25th of January, effectively you are, for want of a better term, off. Obviously, you'll be working on your assessments during that period, particularly the fact that one of the assessments is due on the 11th of January, and one of the assessments, the exam, is due between the 13th and the 15th. So it's not that you're doing nothing, but it means there's no classes run at the university online or on campus between the 18th of December and the 20th of January. So your Christmas break officially ends on Friday, the 8th of January. Your first day back is technically the 11th of January, but that's when these 2 assessment weeks take place, when your intro to politics assessment is due on the 11th, as I said, and the exam is on the 13th. There are no classes until the 25th, as I've just said. The other thing to know about this semester, which is a little different to the one we just had, is that it runs kind of across Easter, and obviously we have an Easter break at the university. So it runs from the 25th of January to the 29th of March when you break up for your Easter break, and then classes resume again on the 19th of April. So the Friday is the 16th, you resume on the 19th. So in essence, we're not here for a couple of weeks over Easter, and the final 3 weeks of semester two take place between the 19th of April and the 21st of May there. All of this will make far more sense when you get your module handbook, etc. But it's just a note that we don't nor expect you to attend during the Easter break. So what are these three modules then, and what they're about? So political ideologies, very simply, and we'll talk about this for a slide or two time, is a discussion of the isms. You are going to do all the isms that exist within politics: conservatism, liberalism, socialism, nationalism, fascism, as it says midway down the slide there. Because political ideologies are very key to understanding politics in general, understanding what motivates people who are involved in politics. So this is an introduction module into political ideologies that continue to shape and influence the world that we live in. And we're going to talk about the vocabularies that people draw upon. We're also going to talk about how these different isms exist across the world, where they've come from, potentially what are the key scholars, who are the key theorists and the key thinkers. And in essence, it's going to also look at not just the isms, but some of the more up-to-date things, which maybe don't have isms around them. So we'll talk about things like kind of green policy as opposed to maybe greenism, etc. But other things such as multiculturalism as well, obviously. To perhaps more modern developments than our traditional conservative socialism. We talk about quite a lot in the intro politics class. But the core information, and again, I must stress that this is at the time of me recording and writing this little PowerPoint for this practical skills session. The current information I have is that obviously the university is going to continue the hybrid model, which is where some classes are online, some classes are on campus. From what I'm aware of, as I sit here in December 2020, this module is likely to be online. This could change. I must stress that again. I must stress very much this could change. But my understanding is it's probably going to be online. So it'll be similar to the way the Britain and the Bowater Brexit class, probably, depending on how Ken, who is likely to be the module leader, delivers his content. So it's likely to be Ken. He's a senior lecturer in the history of ideas. I've put off out there, apologies. He's published widely on political thought. So, and I think he has a book on Plato, for instance. He's also published on Aristotle. He's very interested in the history of the ancient world, but also we can take basic politics all the way back to the ancient world. And Ken will also be able to provide an awful lot of information on some of the modern elements as well, with his knowledge of the history and I guess also the genesis of some of these theories in particular ancient Greece. This is a very traditional module, as are most of the modules this semester: 12 one-hour lectures, 12 two-hour seminars. As I said, it's a study of all those isms that you can see there. The module text was what we just saw on the last slide. It's Geohagen and Wilford's Political Ideologies and Introduction. Try and buy the 2014 edition, which is the fourth edition of the text. I think this may have been included in the advanced bundle, but I'm not entirely sure. But you might want to get hold of that book before you start class on the 25th. What's the assessment for political ideologies? A 2,000-word documentary analysis. So students have to engage with a primary source from one of the isms that existed within your individual weekly classes. Ken will decide exactly what you get to select from it. I know last year the students selected from a variety of isms. You must, in this kind of assignment, which is documentary analysis, it's slightly different to the essay that you did in Introduction to Politics, or that you're going to be doing, and the critical review that you're going to be doing in the Britain class. So what you're going to be doing is analysing a primary source, and you have to both analyse the source, tell us kind of the when about the source, but also analyse the things that operate around it, the context in which the source was written, and what historians, political academics, etc., have said, not just about the source in specifics, but about the issues that are potentially raised in the source as well. And that's absolutely key to access those higher level marks. As I said, your module leader is likely to be Ken, not certain, but like, and he'll be able to explain the exact parameters of this assessment in more detail. But this is just an overview at this point. So our second module in semester 2 is Europe, War, Revolution and Union, 1914 to 17. This is going to look between 1914, apologies again, slight typo on the slide, 1914 and 2017, at what happened in Europe in political, economic and social terms. So it's going to look all the way from First World War, the Paris Peace Treaty and the other peace treaties which end the war, the Russian revolutions, into the depression of the 1920s, the rise of the Nazis and the rise of Mussolini in Italy, etc. Second World War, Cold War, some of the problems in the 50s and 60s that existed within the Soviet states, and then move on to kind of the fall of the Soviet era. And all the way up to date, we're going to be talking about European integration and obviously Britain's decision to leave the European Union, as we can see by the bookend there with 2017, with the 2016 EU referendum, the decisions that were made in the following years. So in essence, we're going to cover all the things that I've just said there, which are also on the slide there. But this allows us to come all the way up to date. So a European module has existed for politics and history at this university for quite a while, but this is an up-to-date, refreshed version that allows us to access Europe all the way through to the present. In the past, when this module has ran, because I've taught this before, it used to stop in basically at the end of the Cold War, but now we're including a couple of new weeks to try and get us all the way up to date. So these are the areas of investigation that I've pretty much just said from the top of my head. I think I've got the vast majority of them there. So I think that's kind of exactly what you're going to be doing in your weekly sessions. Again, it's a 12 1-hour lecture, 12 2-hour seminar kind of class. Likely is that this will take place, I believe, on campus, but I would have to double check that at this time. And it's also likely as well, I didn't put this on the slide, but it's likely that potentially I might be the module leader for this. Certainly that's the way that it is at the moment, but that could change. The likely teacher that you're going to see the most in this module is Dr. Tim Ellis. Tim, the lecturer in history, and Tim's kind of interests are in kind of the European era. He's published quite a lot on Ireland, for instance, but Tim has been teaching this European class for about the last 4 or 5 years. Kind of, it really is his baby and his bread and butter. But as we said, there's a couple, 2 maybe new weeks that we're going to add to it about the more modern developments in Europe. What's the assessment for this? It is a mixed assessment, so there's a 2,500 word source criticism portfolio. So there are 2 parts to your assessment for this module. First part is a 1,000-word documentary analysis, which is similar to the political ideologies assignment, but it's much shorter, as you can see there. So obviously, we're going to use European sources and not the isms, the ideological sources. But this is going to test your ability to display your deep knowledge of a topic in a succinct manner because you have a much shorter word count. The second part of the assignment is a 1,500 word web-based assignment. What we've done here in the past, and as I said, this is an up-to-date version of an old module in essence, so we've really kind of brought this into the 21st century in essence. But what's worked really well here in the past is that you're likely to investigate for the web-based assignment from Holocaust to now. So there are a number of websites out there on the Holocaust, some of which are denial websites, which do mask themselves fairly well, so that it's not always obvious to the reader at first glance about kind of some of the awful things that actually are contained, some of the myths that they are populating about the Holocaust. I mean, including to some extent people deny that it exists or that it happened. So in essence, you have to analyze these web assignments. You have to analyze, I think we give you 2 and you have to third website. But it's a really good way of kind of investigating kind of some areas of history that have kind of real controversy about them, such as Holocaust denial, and when obviously the weight of history, if not the 99% majority of history clearly indicates there's much evidence to showcase the tragic events of the Holocaust did actually happen. But there are people out there who are not really historians, maybe historians with a very loose inverted comma, try and deny this, etc. The final module of the 3 that you're going to do in semester 2 is America from Watergate to Trump. I think with this one, I'm almost certain I'll be taking this because this is a module that I created from scratch. So this ran for the first time last year. As I said, it's a mixed module, so it has some politics students and some history students, but not all of them. So this is basically saying that politics is divided in the US and not in the world. But we're going to trace back some of the reasons as to why it's divided. So the argument by Cruz and Zellison, that's the book you've got access to, fault lines, as you can see there. Their fault lines book for this America from Watergate to Trump module says that these fault lines that allowed the election of Trump have existed all the way through the last maybe 40, 50, 60 years. So it explores the fault lines that exist within race in America that has come through the civil rights movement all the way up to Black Lives Matter. It explores kind of American foreign policy over this term, America's economics over this term, women's rights, immigration, and a variety of other things. Effectively, we want to do this through studies of individual presidencies, and I hope you'll find this module something I really enjoyed teaching last year. So I said I'm likely to be the module leader. It's a study of American politics since the 70s. We start with Watergate and the loss of trust that existed within American politics, and potentially the loss of trust that maybe exists in politics today can be traced back to that. We are studying each president, as I have just said. The assignment is a knowledge exchange, which can cover any aspect in these years, as long as it's American. So I had some really left field things done for the knowledge exchange last year. 5. Again, 12 1-hour lectures, 12 2-hour seminars. The likelihood is that the lectures for this class will be online, but the seminars will be on campus. Again, I must stress, I wish I had a flashing red light to say that it could change. But as I sit here, that's the plan at the moment. So what kind of content will we include here? General introduction the first week. Then we're going to look at, as I said, the individual issues that occur, not only individual, the main issues that occur under the presidents that he pitched in the 70s. We're looking at Nixon, Carter, some race issues across the terms, Reagan, end of the Cold War, Bush, Clinton, Obama, Bush Jr., and Trump. And also we'll get right up to date and we'll make the last week on 2020, because last year it was on the 2020 looking forward elections before it took place, or in this class ran previously, but this year we can be able to take that all with Biden's victory. The assignment is something a little different that you've never done before and maybe not heard of before. It's a knowledge exchange project, and you will do a knowledge exchange project, I believe, at every level of your university. You mean first year, second year, third year. So it's good to get used to it now. The knowledge exchange, or the KEP as we call it, allows students to construct their own example of any theme within American politics from the 70s. What you need to do here, you need to create a creative piece. We call it the creative piece, which could be a mock speech. So you could think that, we don't have kind of a speech that exists for this person, so I'm going to make one. Or what some people do quite a lot of the time is they'll make maybe a presidential debate, or they'll make kind of a question time event amongst two individuals who maybe didn't get the chance to debate during their lifetimes because they might have been around at different points, etc. You could also make a manifesto or a leaflet. I've seen some people use leaflets that could be used maybe in a secondary school, in a lesson plan, or in a library, etc. Create a newspaper article, create an advertisement, create a podcast. I've seen people do scripts of podcasts for the knowledge exchange creative bit, where it's a written debate that occurs between maybe an academic and politician, maybe between two academics, maybe between 2 or 3 politicians with a narrator as well. You can discuss any ideas about this with me as we come towards this submission. This will be not for a long time yet. In essence, I ask students to kind of send me their idea before I will approve it, just because it's slightly different. So the normal assessment is not a list of questions. You can basically say, look, I want to do this on Gerald Ford, for instance, and I want to do it on a particular aspect of this, to make a newspaper article about Gerald Ford or something, and pardons. Students will be asked to, excuse me, students will be asked to incorporate groups, views from your group seminar discussions in your commentary. And the commentary is the 2,000 words that you have to write about the creative piece that you've created. So in essence, you're going to do a creative piece, which is this blog post, it's a newspaper article, a radio interview, a podcast transcript, all of those things are meant to do. And then you've got to write 2,000 words about why you did it, where this could potentially fit, why it would be useful to a library, a school, a university, a website, etc. And also say what kind of was the broad context in which you operated. So what influenced what you were saying? Where did you find your information from? Because you don't want to make this off the top of your head. You want to be influenced by texts that exist out there. So some of the good examples of this often might do a debate, say, between 2 presidents who've never actually debated because they're different ages by substantial margins, but they've used real life quotes and speeches or even presidential debates that each individual sat in and made it into an argument across the two, which has been really effective because they've been able to put footnotes in their creative piece and say, this is where I got my source material from. You need to kind of explain this in your commentary, but the other part of your commentary also, which is very crucial, is to explain the context in which you're writing, which means understand what's being written academically about that particular topic. So it's not just a thing where you create something, don't look at any books. The books come in your commentary where you have to say that kind of, I have read these 5, 6, 10 books on Gerald Ford, and these are the main debates academics have had, and this is what I'm trying to include in my main presentation and my main creative piece. So a bit of a conclusion, this is the final week of your practical skills classes. They don't run in semester 2. This was a one-off just for the very start of term that we do both in the history degree and the politics degree. They hopefully help you or have helped you with essay writing, grammar, plagiarism, references, presentations, and other key skills, etc. But with these skills in place, hopefully you can now put them into practice and for your first assessments, which are due around the time of watching the video. So thank you for your attendance across the year, across all 4 hours of the introductory politics class. I'm pretty certain I'll definitely see you at some point next year in the American module, if not in the European module a little bit as well. I might be taking the lectures for the European module, but I'm not certain. I'm pretty certain I'll be taking the American class. So I'll see a lot of you there. So thank you.